Hello everybody! Welcome back to this guy, Zachary Chopchinsky here. Posted another video for you guys to check out, again in an attempt for people to know me and maybe like me. Again, I'm trying to make these as regular as I can. My wife says I have to be regular, so like a big dose of bran, let's regulate this stuff. So here we go. Again, Zachary Chopchinsky, got a recent book out, Curious Tale of Gabrielle, shamelessly plugging it, and I would love for you guys to pick it up. But a little bit, we're gonna actually dive into that a little bit, so I can tell some folks a little bit about the book, so that maybe you might decide if it's something that you would want to read. I hope you would, but you know, not everything is everybody's taste. Me personally, I'm ridiculously picky with what I read. I want to say in an individual sense. I'm very picky. If I'm reading something for my own entertainment, I'm a little bit picky. If I'm reading something to help somebody out or proofread or maybe give somebody an honest review, I will absolutely read anything because I'm all about, I will actually grade you more specifically on the structure rather than the content in that sense. Because, you know, I'm all about people falling in love, but I'm not a huge fan of romantic stories. That's a lie. But, you know, I gotta say what I gotta say to sound cool. So, a little bit about my book, The Curious Tale of Gabrielle. What essentially brought this book about was I was actually in an antique store buying something for my mother-in-law. And the proprietor of that particular establishment took me to the back of her store. She mostly sells furniture. She had a small selection of antique jewelry, one of which was a silver bangle that was more than 500 years old. She had all the cool little paperwork. It was found on a dig. Cool stuff. And so I began thinking, what would it be like to be able to see or to live that long, or even just to be able to see what that bracelet has seen, the people that it's known, and that just kind of just snowballed down the hill and turned into what I consider a series, The Curious Tale of Gabrielle. Basically, it's about a young woman who is given a bracelet by a dear friend, and she dons the bracelet, and it kind of shoots her back through time, and she relives the lives, essentially, of the past owners of the bracelet. I'm not going to lie. It's a historical fiction. It's based off of historical events and lives very closely with big historical events. But it's not necessarily the happiest of book at times. Because let's be honest, throughout history, the huge historical events, there was always an air of tragedy and despair in them. I think that we as a human race generally tend to need some sort of strife or tragedy or hardships to project us into the future and make us evolve as persons. So in that kind of respect is why I've driven these particular books the way that they want, the way that they're going. As far as style is concerned, I generally try to keep a very traditional style. My grandmother was a very big part of my life growing up, and she was an English teacher. Very, very heavy into classic literature. I remember growing up being read things such as the Canterbury Tales, The Great Gatsby. You really get those pinnacle just think of like classic novels and books. That was my grandmother. Granted, she comes from a time when those were the standard of reading. So that's really where I draw a lot of my basic structure out. So if maybe not necessarily the storyline is something that might amuse you, I think that it's absolutely something that's driven towards everybody. My book's been classified as a young adult book, but I like to think that by young adult, I'm thinking anybody from mid-ish to later-ish teens up through 20s plus. It's a very classic writing style, in my personal opinion. This might be a way for you to read it and give me your personal opinion. Just saying, you could give it a shot. You never know. So anyway, well, that's kind of a little base premise about my book that's out currently. It is going to be, again, a part of a series. I'm actually very deep into the second book. The initial series, without having any crazy spoilers, the goal is for 6 books. As of right now, the first book is now in the printed version. It's just about 200 pages. The future books are going to be at minimum that size and get a little bit bigger. So maybe, take the investment into my series, and hopefully you can grow with my characters as we all grow together. I appreciate you watching this one. This one's a little bit more serious. You gotta grow up and put on the big boy pants. I fought, screamed, kicked and everything, but eventually, my wife held me down and got my pants on. So I lost. But anyway, I appreciate you watching this one. 5 minutes. That's a long video. If you stayed this long, high five. Thanks for coming back for another installment of, me. And there's going to be many more where this came from. Have a great day. Take care.